Hey everybody, happy Friday part 2. Today we're going to split the video into two. Earlier today we were in St. Augustine, kind of just walking around a little bit. And then we found the world's most awesome freak show, etc. But right now we are waiting for our tour to start in another 5 minutes on Ghosts and Gravestones, which is another haunted tour. We've done a couple haunted tours previously. You can see the links for them up here. And we did them through Ripley's before. This time around, this is a separate organization, and they take us to the oldest prison in America and one of the oldest pharmacies, I believe. It's turned into a wax museum these days. So we go to two places. Both of them are supposed to be super haunted. We're going to check them out. I don't know how much we're going to be able to film because it'll probably be pitch black, but let's see how things go. This is our accommodation for the evening.
21.
Happy Pappy's glowing balls.
It got to be so full so fast, they had to start burying bodies outside of the walls.
This is the Huguenot Cemetery.
So as we drive by, we are rolling over mass graves, as many as 25 bodies deep. Now if you look to your left, you will see the city gates. One of the first people to die from the yellow fever was Elizabeth, the daughter of the gatekeeper. She's been seen standing between the city gates waving to cars as they pass by. We're not sure if she's waving hello or if she's waving us away from the fever-stricken city, but if you stand between the city gates and you feel a heaviness in the air followed by a cold wind, it might just be little Elizabeth. And we're about to make our first stop at the old drugstore and Potter's. We're at in St. Augustine. Colorado was the name of the chief of the Native American village that was here before the Spanish came, and this was a Native American burial ground before it was a Catholic cemetery. Like the Huguenot, the Colorado extends out into this parking lot and beneath Potter's, which is why Potter's is such an active paranormal hotspot. You'll notice that a lot of these graves in the Colorado, they are above ground tombs. That is because we have the same problem that New Orleans does. If it rains bad enough, it's going to flood and bodies will pop up out the ground. So that was the best solution, was to put the bodies in above ground crypts. That was pretty expensive, so sometimes an entire family would chip in and buy a big vault like this one. That way multiple members of the same family could be interred in one spot without having to pay too much extra. Little shoes.
There's been a lot of apparitions of a boy that died here in this tree.
Potters. He likes to run up and down the hallways. You'll hear little footsteps running around, and sometimes you'll hear laughter.
We're going into Potter's Wax Museum. Ernest Hemingway. This was the old drugstore from 1886. Now.
Quite as interesting as the history of what is beneath our feet. See, we are standing on the final resting place of Chief Tolomado himself, as well as a section of the Tolomado Cemetery. That back there is the chief's massive headstone. So if you feel a little bit of tapping coming up from underneath the floorboards, you try not to think too hard about it, okay? When the drugstore first opened, sometimes bottles would fly off the shelves. To be in here and make some of the spots on the floor permanently shinier than others. Arsenic was used in early embalmings because it kills the bacteria that makes corpses stink. And it could take up to 12 pounds of arsenic to embalm a grown man. The money-making scheme we're talking about here. So, people were very afraid of accidentally being buried alive. And this led somebody, and multiple people, to file patents for an invention called safety coffins. I'll bring this around. So, whew. Oh, you caught that. Let that be that because it should be posted. TripAdvisor, ultra viral. Anyways, the Taberger's safety coffin, which was your average coffin, and up out of the ground comes a metal tube. In the tube, there's a bell on a string. The string goes down into your grave, then it's wrapped around your hand. And this way, if you were to wake up from a coma in your own grave, you could just... and somebody'd come running to dig ya. One of these clever rogues was Andrew Ranson, this guy right here. Andrew Ranson, he was very good at being a pirate. So good, in fact, that he got a little bit cocky, a little bit careless. That is what led to him getting caught. Once he was caught, the governor sentenced all the men working under him to hard labor, building the Castillo de San Marco. But he had a more interesting fate in store for Andrew Ranson. He wasn't going to be hung, that would be too easy, and besides, that was the English way. Instead, he was going to be garroted. Has anybody seen a garrote? Well, now you have. Here's one right here.
Yeah.
Garroting is a form of execution designed for extreme suffering before death. So can I have an adult volunteer? Hey, come on up. So we get up here, push your back against that. What's your name?
Ariel.
No, it's not. It's Andrew Ranson. Day of Andrew Ranson's execution arrives. Townspeople, the clergy, they've all shown up to see the notorious plunderer put to death. The executioner arrives and begins to read the names and crimes of the guilty.
Andrew Ranson! You have been found guilty of the crime of piracy and shall be executed by in the form of garroting in the public square. Rope pulled through the hole in the post, wrapped around your oddly feminine neck. Uh-oh. Tied back through the hole in the post. Tied to this bat, shall be turned and twisted until you die.
This is the forever tree. It's a tree that's a palm tree coming out of an oak tree. A palm tree.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the first bishop of...
They call it the Together Forever tree, and if you kiss your significant other under that tree, you'll be together forever.
What we got here? These are the voices of the dead, and then the white noise of recordings of the living can hear. This was found in the journal by the Port Orange Paranormal Society. If would play it, please. That says there were only 8. There were only 8 documented state-sanctioned hangings performed at this jail. We have reason to believe that there were plenty more than that in the Florida heat, but they did have to deal with the Florida heat, and the prisoners were dropping like flies, so they had to quickly replenish the workforce. This meant that if you got picked up for something relatively small, like loitering or being drunk in public, instead of paying a small fine, you may end up going to jail for a couple of months. And depending on your age and physical condition, that could be the last anybody hears of you. So a lot of the people that died in this jail, you know, maybe they didn't deserve to, but it did have its fair share of hardened criminals and cold-blooded murderers, as we shall soon find out.
Uh-oh. I hear something. I'm going to jail.
Towards the back of the room and away from the door, please.
Difficult for the camera to focus. Our host was taken by a prisoner. Oh no.
Who are you people, huh? What kind of jail stripes are y'all wearing? They were supposed to chain you together to bring you in here, but it's all right. Don't worry, it's okay. You heard, right? Yeah, we took good care of the storyteller. My name is Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
All right. And I'm going to tell you real things about this place. True stories about the 8. Okay? Now, the 8 official hangings that took place in St. Augustine happened right out there. And the other side of that 2-foot thick concrete wall there was 8 men that died at the end of a rope. Take a good look at this big Kodiak picture. This is one of the only pictures that was ever taken of one of the hangings. The big fella wearing the hat is Sheriff Joseph Perry.
A bear took that
6'6", he weighed over 300 pounds. Big boss, huh? You're in his jail now. This is Sim Jackson, 1906. See? They gave him flowers. He got into a big fight with his wife. We don't know who started it, but we know who finished it. You're looking at him. Beat her up real bad, took his shaving knife, and hacked away at her throat with the thing. Cut his wife's throat so deep they said the razor blade got stuck in her collarbone and broke off, and that must have been the only thing that stopped him from cutting the poor woman's head clean off. Because when they found her, her head was hanging by a thread. No wonder 500 people shows up on this day to watch him. It was a big story because they used Sim for an experiment. 2 fancy brain doctors from up north was doing experiments on hangings. They wanted to see how long Sim could keep his conscious mind. They told him if you survive the drop, you must wiggle your fingers as long as you can. Yeah. And here's what happened. His last request was to speechify to the whole crowd. He carried on, he raised a big fuss about God, and he said, "Friends, one day I'm going to see you all in heaven." And they put the rope over his head, and down he went. And he wiggled his fingers for everyone to watch. Over 10 minutes before he finally gave up. Made the sheriff so mad, the sheriff let him hang there for 30 minutes. And then he declared Sim Jackson officially dead. They took the gallows apart after every hanging because they would make you help build the thing. And then they threw you into there. That was death row. Yeah, you can go in there if you want. Imagine what it was like waiting 30 days for them to come and tell you when it's time to make the long road. Long walk to the end of the road, climb the stairway to heaven, and stand in that spot they call dead center. No one wanted to end up in this part of the building. 7 out of 8 of the men that hanged was murderers. 3 were from Jacksonville. The Jacksonville murderers was hanged on May 31st in 1912. Steve Johnson, Eugene Baxter, and Thomas White, a triple hanging. Can you imagine? 3 of them went up, 3 of them came down. But there was no more after that. That was the last. They said Steve Johnson cried like a baby. Make sure my wife gets my boots. Yeah, she's got to bury my boots because she can't afford to bury me. His wife didn't want to have nothing to do with him or his boots. I've got those boots. See? Yes.
There's the boots.
Yep, they take your laces. You can't have long laces, you know. Laces are considered a weapon. Yes, the boots Steve Johnson hanged in on May 31st of 1912. You want to touch them? Yep. Steve Johnson, Eugene Baxter, and Thomas White. The 3 Jacksonville murderers would rather hang than spend time in a jail like this. To the night, it wasn't so friendly during the daytime either, I know. These are my gallows. It's not like the others, but it wasn't because I was a wife murderer. I was different. Shot a man in Bunnell because he said things about my wife. Justified, right, ladies? He said terrible things. Terrible, unholy things he needed to shut up. Can you guess what was the last thing went through his head? Huh.
A bullet.
They just chased him back in.
Right now, before he comes back. That did not scare me.
So our ghost tour is done. I did not think that this ghost tour was as good as the Ripley's ghost tour. It's a little bit cheaper, but it's a lot hokier. With the Ripley's tour, I think, you know, you really kind of feel like a little bit more like you're ghost hunting. This one's some ghost stories and a lot of hokey components to it. Mary's thoughts?
I did like the part of the tour with the jail. The only thing, it was so dark you couldn't see anything. The only time you could, if you took a picture, would flash. So
That's true. And most of the stuff that you wanted to see was like either dummies or actors, kind of trying to jump scare you.
yeah.
So if I had to choose between just those 2 tours, between Ripley's and Ghost Adventures, I choose Ripley's. We had some really good kind of like paranormal type experiences on Ripley's, and this was kind of just like storytelling. All right, I think we are situated in Jacksonville for the night. Thank you for coming along with us today over in St. Augustine. Always a really fun trip. It's off the path out of Orlando, probably about a 90-minute drive from Orlando to get up to St. Augustine as Mary opens beverages in the background. In any event, nation's oldest city. So much to see, including the Fountain of Youth. Again, we've been here multiple times. If you look through our past videos, you'll find a bunch of our videos in St. Augustine. Always awesome. But on that note, thank you for all of your likes. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great night. We'll see you guys.